Hi everyone, it's Alex here and I'm joined by Richie. We're carrying on our interview from the last one where we talked about living in Vietnam and what it's like living here in Da Nang City. And now we're going to talk a little bit more about teaching English and the industry and all good information from Richie, who's got a lot of experience in the field.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Richie. I've been teaching online now for the past several years. I really know this industry well. This is my passion, it's my interest, and I'm absolutely honored to be sharing this with all of you guys out there. I just want to share the hacks because this is something that I've really understood very well.
Awesome, let's get into it then. Do you want to tell us a bit about what you do? I know you work for Google and Amazon, is that right? Doing business English, I assume, or just conversational English. So
English.
Tell us a bit about that, and then also, obviously, that's not so much of an entry-level position, but how did you get there, and how did you get started with teaching online?
Okay, so I've been teaching English for a long time, almost 20 years. I started back in Russia in 2002. Of course, it was working in the physical schools, the brick-and-mortar places. I did that for over 10 years, and I was always skeptical about getting into the online thing, breaking through the lens, that barrier of the lens. I couldn't really understand how that could be done. And then one day I just took that dive. I dived into it because this was the only way to really, for that next level of independence, to really liberate yourself, so where you can just live anywhere, be completely remote, internationally mobile, and you can react quick. And that really helped me when it came to COVID, because I was in Italy, and as you may know, Italy took a massive hit. Literally, I decided in a day to get out of here. And so working with Google and Amazon, it's something I just kind of slipped into. I saw the opportunity. It's a company I work for. They have exclusive contracts with Google and Amazon. And I'm one of the guys who specializes with these companies. The great thing about Google and Amazon, I mean, they're not really different from any other clients, but they buy packages, very large packages. And so I know that I'm going to have this student or this client for the next year. You know, every Tuesday, every Friday, I have this guy at this time, and it's for a very long time.
And that's
so there's
great,
a lot of peace of mind there.
Because a lot of times online teaching companies don't, the hours aren't really guaranteed as much, and you aren't sure if you're going to get booked or not, right?
One of the companies I work for, we have a lot of autonomy. So once you have passed the interview, which is quite tough, once you've passed that interview, once you get the job, it's very hands-off. They give you a lot of freedom. And so I just get emails, can you take this client, they want at this time, and then you accept it. And then from there on out, I deal with that client directly myself. If they would like to change a day, we organize it between ourselves. Maybe more days, hey, let's do Wednesday and Thursday too. And that's for me to manage. And I really like that, having that decision-making power in my hands. That's rather unique in the online world, but a huge plus.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting seeing this whole progression over the last 5 years of shifts back and forward between online, teaching English online and in person. And it's interesting that you've gone from the brick and mortar to the online. So bearing that in mind, what would you say is the worst advice you hear, or like the common things you often hear in the ESL industry that is actually bad advice, especially for the online teaching industry and those getting started?
Well, the online industry is the weaker side of the industry. It is larger, but it's weaker because it's less demanding. Working in the physical classroom, it requires real skills that are instantly noticeable. If a newbie, if someone completely new walks into a classroom, you can feel that. You know, I was that guy. The very first time I went into to my lesson, I actually went in with a script that said, "Hello, my name is Richie." I wrote that down, and now I'm not like that. I'm very comfortable in that environment. So you could feel that very quickly. The problem with online is that people are looking for quick answers. You're unemployed. Hey, let's do that online thing. And that's fine. And so you start to look into this, and then you're going to get overloaded with advertisements, very aggressive advertisements. Hey, you could be a teacher in a couple of weeks, and it will only cost you $20 or $30. Or hey, we have a discount that's from, $300 to $30, which is suspiciously cheap for anything. And you have to think to yourself, what kind of quality are you going to get from that? And these places, for example, Groupon, maybe you've heard of that, maybe you haven't, you will get a TEFL certificate at the end of it. But will you be a good teacher? Will you be a confident teacher? It's one thing to have that certificate. Hey, I can do this officially. But then you have to do the interview. You have to do demo lessons. You have to be able to win students and explain grammar and create vocabulary lessons and things like that. And these companies, they take your money, they'll give you a piece of paper in return, and then you're thrown into the deep end. This is the problem with online teaching, is that there is a lack of confidence in this industry of teachers who really feel that they have learned something while learning how to teach, I think. And anyone can get into this, native, non-native. I think the single most important factor are not working for those companies who are trying to pick you up for incredibly cheap. And number two, actually doing a course that gives you value, not only for your money, but you're going to really learn something. That's really important.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a big factor, is that you actually need to be a good teacher at some point, And the thing is, because everything's shifted online and the barrier to entry is a lot smaller, a lot of these companies, especially if they were these fast-paced, high-tech companies in China, they would overhire for one. They would hire anybody, they would have their application process, but it wasn't really the same as the in-person jobs where there would be a lot more in that hiring process. They'd ask you a lot more questions about your actual teaching skill and ability. And to be fair, a lot of it is more automated through some of these platforms, so you don't necessarily always have to be an amazing teacher to follow the process, which is fair. But at the same time, I think with the China crash, which we'll talk about in a second, I think a lot of companies now are probably going to be focused a little bit more on, look, if we're hiring, we want to hire someone who's a good teacher. And maybe it's not the hardest skill to learn to teach online versus the classroom, but there's definitely an aspect of being a good teacher that is required. What would you say would be some good tips for first time people wanting to get into teaching online? Any recommendations for them?
Okay, big question. I just want to touch on something you just said there. When you are going to teach in the physical classroom, you have to either be very impressive as a teacher or a good people person, to win people, to make your group enjoy coming on Thursdays at 8 o'clock. It's something they enjoy doing. Whereas online, although there is definitely a human element there, actually, especially those big tech companies, what you really have to do is navigate through their AI protocols. And that is going to determine whether you're successful or not successful. And trust me, there are a lot of algorithms that are watching. Do your eyes leave the screen?
Wow.
They're checking if you're looking at your phone, and a lot of artificial intelligence involved in these platforms that are watching your behavior very carefully.
Wow.
Okay, and so they're not actually looking at how well you teach materials, relationships that you have with your students. They're looking at ticking certain boxes throughout a definite period of time, such as how often your eyes leave the screen, and how often you interact clicking with the platform. Or are you actually clicking on other parts of your computer?
Wow.
Because I could be looking at my student, but actually surfing Facebook. Yeah, these AI programs, they're aware of that.
Yeah.
And you are rated after every single lesson for most companies. They're giving you a rating. And so you are very aware of this. They're very different universes. I'd say anyone who wants to get into the online thing, I think it's better, it's easier for people who have taught in the brick and mortar schools. To make that transition is easier. To just jump into the online teaching thing, I think it's a little bit harder for people. It's definitely doable, but I think you could bring more value there to a company if you had taught in brick and mortar schools.
And often it's just getting your foot in the door to your first job, and I found that over 6 months worth of experience in pretty much any job, if you've got a year's worth of experience in any kind of job, in person or online, having that on your resume to get your next job and get higher rates is a really useful thing. So a lot of the time it's just getting your foot in the door. And I'll actually steal one of your tips from a video on your channel that I watched. Making a good introduction video, good CV, and emailing them directly, like finding the email address on the websites, emailing the company directly, going through the actual application process that they have, but then sending that in a separate email. I think that probably at the moment the application video is probably one of the most important things, would you say?
Yeah, absolutely. You need to present yourself in the best way possible. For recruiters at a time when the market is completely saturated, they make an advertisement, they receive thousands of applications, and you have to consider the fact that the person looking at your CV doesn't have a lot of time. They won't indulge you. It needs to be something quick, something punchy, something that stands out on one page. Your self-introductory video needs to be just 60 seconds or 90 seconds long. And please don't start by telling, "Hi, my name is Richie and I'm TEFL certified," and blah, blah, blah. No, show me what you can do. Show me, don't tell me, in 60 seconds. If you can do that, you get jobs.
I think those are some good tips for getting started. And then let's just briefly talk about what the industry looks like right now, because if you guys saw, I did a video on this, on the big China crash and the education laws that were passed in China, which made it difficult or impossible for adults to teach young learners in China. So what does the industry look like now? How's that impacted things, the rates that teachers get, and where do you think things are going right now?
Okay, so China was the place to teach online. You could go in there absolutely entry level. If you had any kind of charisma, you would be successful immediately. They were paying the best rates, $25, $30 an hour I've heard of. And this was for anyone, even just walking in. They were fantastic rates. The problem was the capitalism, just something went wrong, and the whole thing has just crashed for whatever reason. China was 49% of the global EFL industry. Now a large part of that is inaccessible to most teachers. The companies have been crashing, the behavior hasn't been very good, and so now the market is completely flooded. A lot of people are going to have to really up their game in order to survive. And that's what we do on our channel, is by teaching you how to be more competitive, giving you those hacks, those how-tos for individual companies of how you can make yourself more competitive and more marketable for these jobs. It's definitely something that people need to pay attention to now, is quality. Now, the whole market is in a state of flux. 50% has gone of the supply, but the teachers, they still exist. Everything is very, very turbulent now. We are feeling the ripple effect that are going to go on for a long time. I would honestly recommend anyone who is serious about teaching, go back to brick and mortar. This is the time. Online teaching was absolutely fantastic. It was the best variant out there during long-term lockdowns, during the COVID period and the pandemic. Those days are coming to an end. Now we have those answers. Get your vaccine, borders are opening, and you can go out into the real world. And a lot of people, they've missed that. And if you've never got into teaching, or it's something you'd like to do, now is a perfect time to do it. Schools, they're just opening. They're looking for fresh talent. They're looking for people just like you. If you can get TEFL certified, then there is a place for you. And if you're willing to take that jump, there is definitely a place for you. I'm all for going back to brick and mortar, go back to the physical schools, at least until everything settles down a little bit and the online industry makes more sense. And I've missed people too. It's good to get out and talk to people.
Yeah, I've always liked the in-person teaching a bit more than online. There's definitely pros, like you've mentioned, having that in-person contact. And I think that's why a lot of people, at least who watch this channel, are interested in teaching English, is to live abroad and not do the normal office job. Over the last, I think of it as like a 5-year period, when I saw all these online teaching companies really blow up and get big, and then the crash that's happened now. That was a period where the online teaching got really good and, like you said, paying well. At the same time, there's also everyone who's living at home and they are wanting to make some money online. And I think that's a certain group of people which teaching online can work for. But a lot of people watching this channel, I know a lot of you, want to both live abroad and make money from teaching English. And I think Richie's right. Going back to the brick and mortar, you know, there's not enough teachers like in Vietnam right now, for example. That's, you know, for other reasons, you know, borders not being open just yet. But the thing is, there'll be the opposite situation where schools need lots of teachers versus online when, you know, there's more teachers than there are jobs. So I definitely agree with that. And there's a couple of advantages too with the in-person teaching is typically the hours are more stable, you get more hours given to you, it's a more consistent salary, and yeah, and just showing up in person, it's nice to teach in person as well, you know.
And you also have that opportunity to have a social life with the people that you work with, if you would like. Just because you work at a school, it doesn't mean you're locked there. It doesn't mean you're trapped there. A lot of people, they just come and they do their thing and they have nice relations with people at work, and then they go home and they have their own life entirely. And that's fine. It's not being a member of a club. It's not a little clique. A lot of people have this bad image in their head of that. And it's absolutely not that way. Maybe it was that way back in the 1960s, but it's not that way anymore. And when the borders open, you are going to be in really high demand. Never forget that it's not only the stable hours and competitive pay. Just think, if you are from the West, not only from the West, but for example me, I'm from London, and that's an incredibly expensive city. For me to live in London like I do here, I would have to earn at least £10,000 a month. And jobs that pay £10,000 a month, they're incredibly hard to get. And here you can live really, really well, and it's very achievable. It's really, really achievable.
Yeah.
$2,000 a month, you can live extremely well. You can go where you want, whenever you want. You can have weekends at the resort. You can go to spas and massages and eat out in restaurants and go to nightclubs and still save money at the end of it.
Yeah.
And $300 for a super, super cool apartment.
Yeah.
Everyone would love to live in our apartments.
I honestly live on less than $1,000 a month personally. You know, it varies,
sure,
of course, but you know, I know a lot of people also less than $1,000 living really well. So I think with borders starting to open, you know, I've made a couple of videos on the channel with different countries in Southeast Asia. It's much easier to get in Thailand, Cambodia, and hopefully Vietnam soon. I think that's a good option. Of course, sometimes the jobs right now are actually going to be online. If you are working for a brick and mortar school, you can get hired, start working for them, and depending on how the situation is, you might be teaching all those students online, but then go back into the classroom. But a big advantage too is you get a work permit, and
That's an awesome idea.
You're employed by a company based in the country. You've got a work permit, you've got a visa to live here, and that's really important because there's been some crackdowns on people living on visas, you know, that aren't specifically for working. So if you are working for brick and mortar school, that's really important to be working legally, and you know you're not going to have any issues with visas.
Yeah,
Cool.
You won't have any issues with visas at all. The schools, they do that for you. All you need to do is make that step. Reach out to Alex. He'll absolutely help you in this way. There's going to be a massive rejuvenation in the coming month. Everything right now, it's simmering, and it's going to start boiling.
Yeah.
And when it does, there's going to be a lot of opportunity. A lot of opportunity.
Nice. Okay, well, thanks for
And
sharing.
you're the guy with the contacts.
With the contacts, yeah.
He's the guy with the contact.
Well, your channel is also great too for online teaching, information and jobs, so definitely go check Richie's channel. Do you want to say how you pronounce it again?
Oh yeah, it's Global Teaching. That's right. I'm Richie. I'm the Global Teacher. That's global outreach with local knowledge. We reach out to everywhere across the globe. However, we live locally, we act locally, we have those inside hacks, and that's exactly what I want to be sharing with you guys on my channel. Right now, I'm focusing more on TEFL jobs, especially online, working in the online industry. However, I am going to be moving into that physical brick and mortar side of things as well, because I really do, with almost 20 years experience doing this, that is where things are definitely headed.
Fantastic. Okay, well, go check out Richie's channel and subscribe to this channel if you want more information and videos about living abroad in Vietnam and teaching English out here. And check out ninjateacher.com if you want to look at our courses and programs for getting started. We are also doing a video over on Richie's channel where you're interviewing me.
That's right.
So if you want to go check that out, I'll leave a link in the description. You can go watch that one as well. and we'll be talking about traveling, living abroad, building a brand.
And doing TEFL courses. TEFL courses,
Yeah.
they are so confusing right now. Every single day on social media, I'm seeing TEFL courses, what to do, where to go, a lot of confusion. We're going to clarify that for you right now on my channel.
All right, cool. I'll speak to you guys soon. Peace.